Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 5 p.m. session here at the 2016 OpenSimulator Community Conference. As a reminder to our in-world and web audience, you can view the full conference schedule at conference.opensimulator.org and tweet your questions or comments at OpenSimCC with the hashtag OSCC16. This session, we are happy to introduce a great panel called Enabling the Forgotten Avatars. Our speakers today are Tim Elliott, Steve Levine, and Lisa Laxton. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve, and I'm going to walk away from the podium for a little bit, but thank you.
Hello. My name is Steve Levine. I am Secretary-Treasurer of a company named Dimension Beyond. Sitting next to me is Lisa Laxton, President of Laxton Consulting Incorporated, or LLC. Sitting on the other side of me today is Tim Elliott, who works with us at A Dimension Beyond. I'm trying to get this so that it'll work typing through the thing. I think I'm just going to let Lear type because it's not working. And thank you, Tim and Lisa, for joining us today.
Welcome. It's possible to be with you today after my I'm a couple days for so I will give with Steve to make both the worlds better.
Thank you, Tim. Please save your questions until the end of the presentation. Just type them into chat. Also, please wait until Lisa is finished, as the chat will be very busy, and I want to see all your questions. Today we are going to talk to you about the forgotten avatar in virtual worlds. The people who are forgotten in virtual worlds also tend to be forgotten in the real world as well. Way back in the almost Stone Age of Second Life, I had quite a few friends in that virtual world. Interestingly enough, it turned out that a lot of people I knew there had a disability of some kind. Remember that behind every avatar, there is a living, breathing person at the keyboard typing away. As I met new people there, I made many friends. All of them were very special to me. I noticed that some of them took quite a while to type out a message to me in chat. In those days, that was all we had. They did not come out with voice in Second Life until sometime later. This forced all communication to be typed out. I wore out at least 3 keyboards on my Mac typing out all that conversation. In the end, I became a pretty good 2-finger typist. As I got to know these people better and we became good friends, they told me about who they were in real life. I heard many, many interesting stories about people with various afflictions. Second Life was their replacement for a first life that was not all that good. One person I met was named Solve. She was a wonderful person with an incredible heart and a wonderful sense of humor. Solve, I found out as I spent time with her, had a terminal disease that involved her heart, but it was also making her progressively more blind as time went on. For Solve, reading the tiny words in the chat was getting harder and harder. Just seeing around at all was becoming almost impossible. Solve disappeared for a couple of weeks once. I was very worried about what happened to her. Turned out she had a heart attack. She had many along the way, but that one was worse. When she finally came back to Second Life, she was mostly blind, and we could not type out our words anymore as she could not see them. We improvised and used Skype to talk together, which solved the reading problem. We also had another problem. She kept losing me in-world because she could not see me when I was away from her. That problem we solved with a HUD that allowed us to hold hands so she could go wherever I went without her having to drive the avatar along. I did all the driving. We had a grand time in Second Life until one day she did not come back. Her mother called me one day and told me that Solveig had died from her final heart attack. Solveig will never be forgotten by me. She enriched my life in many ways and taught me many things. So why do I tell you this whole long story? The answer is very simple. People with disabilities are very special, very smart people that tend to be forgotten. They are generally in their home almost all the time and rarely get out. Getting around is very hard for them. Some of them are very sick and in a bed. Some of them are confined to a wheelchair. Some of them have other disorders that keep them stuck in a room they'd rather escape from. In virtual worlds, these forgotten people can walk and run and even fly. They can dance and explore all sorts of beautiful places and make many wonderful friends. They can also learn to build and script things to make their creations do all sorts of things. One day, this thought hit me like a brick on my head. How many people are out there that could have a better life with part of it in a virtual world? The answer is strikingly high. As Lisa will tell you later, there is an incredible number of disabled people in the world. Just as an example, among veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan, at least 60% of them, over 60,000 vets, have some permanent hearing loss or tinnitus, a chronic ringing in the ears. War, it seems, is really noisy. The high levels of noise destroy the soldiers' hearing. There is a huge number of people with hearing losses that will have that problem for the rest of their lives. A lot of these returning soldiers also have PTSD. Imagine what it is like coming back from serving your country and being doubly disabled and having to figure out your life from there. Virtual worlds can help with this in many ways. At A Dimension Beyond, we are working with a group of people who are helping veterans with PTSD in Second Life and OpenSim grids. It seems that people with common issues can help each other in many ways. These people also end up as forgotten avatars because at this time, there's no good speech-to-text system in the viewers for virtual worlds. The current viewers were designed for the biggest population that the developers thought would be using them. At the time they were originally coded, the technology to do speech-to-text was not very good and rather hard to implement. The things that we do to help disabled people can help other people as well. When we create a good speech-to-text system for hearing-impaired people, it will also be able to be used by other people wanting transcripts and chat of their meetings or other conversations. A business could have a written record of their meeting without having to hire a secretary or a stenographer to record the meeting. We could also tie in a system to translate different languages to text that will help people all over the world communicate with each other in their native language. Just about anything we design, we can have other uses as well if we take a bit of time to think about how we can use them differently. The big thing is that accessibility design needs to be planned from the very beginning. These new services and software need to be built-in part of the built-in part of the software we write. My lips are getting sore, I think. Anyway, if we think first and write later, we will have code that is faster and more easily used to implement new technology for the disabled and everybody else. Today, the technology is far from perfect, as you can see in the readout and chat of what I'm saying. There are parts missing and some things are just garbled. I think the problem is that the speech-to-text translation takes a lot of computing power to work correctly. It also may not have learned my voice yet. There's a lot of room for improvement. That says something a whole lot about what happened just earlier because my computer just refused to do speech-to-text. We are getting together a like-minded community of people interested in making virtual worlds accessible to everyone. Part of this effort will be creating a totally open-source viewer for virtual worlds that will be designed with the disabled in mind. If you would like, we can meet later at the A Dimension Beyond booth in Expo 2, booth number 6, if you would like to learn more. Also, over to the side of us here, I have a little box that has little black box that has, oh boy, somebody's trying to just grab a copy of it if it doesn't work. Then you'll have both the transcripts of all that we're doing here plus the landmark to the booth. Next up is Tim Elliott. Tim works with us at A Dimension Beyond as a coder and advisor on making OpenSim work for disabled people. He's a valuable member of our family. Tim has cerebral palsy. Cerebral palsy primarily affects body movement and muscle coordination. Tim has designed his own system of interfacing with his computer in virtual worlds. He has been involved in virtual worlds since 2007. Tim has written and presented several of his papers at research conferences, including one called How Cyber Anthropology Relates to MMORPGs and the Metaverses. It is about anthropology and the holistic study of humanity and how it can help software engineers develop better online role-playing games in virtual worlds. This was presented at the 2009 and 2010 Meeting of the Minds Conference and published in their journal. He has received community service awards for his work in this area. Go ahead, Tim. It's all yours.
Yeah. The biggest problem that I have with both the worlds and games is I can only use my right hand. Build games require use of both hands. I get a pencil mouse that has buttons for my phone. I can program more codes. For my keys and for my phone keys, that way the mouse I can play video games with my gaming mouse and with one hand. That's the biggest problem I have. Being friends in OpenSim, I wonder if it could be faster some way. That's something that we need to explore.
Okay, Tim, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, I typed out your whole thing in the chat here, so if people would like to know what it is, there's a transcript in there for them, so that they can just kind of read it, which will help a little bit.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Thank you, Tim. Also joining us today is Lisa Laxton. She is president of Laxton Consulting, LLC. She has been involved in virtual worlds and virtual reality since the early 90s, before Second Life and OpenSimulator evolved. She is also an advocate for people with disabilities, here to talk about her own experience and ideas as a person with a hearing disability. Lisa has excellent insights on forgotten avatars. Lisa's presentation is specially designed to be accessible for the widest range of people with disabilities. I'm putting something up in chat here so that you can have it. Whoop, that didn't work. Technology is failing us. Okay, let's see if this one works. There we go. The presentation will be on the big screen behind us running on media on a prim. To see it, you need to click on the screen where the video will be showing, then click the full screen button on the lower right corner to make it big for you. To have the full experience with captions, click the little CC button in the lower right too. Then you have it all. If you cannot see it on the big screen, the whole thing is on YouTube at that address that I gave you, https://gamingyoutube.com/etc. So, stage is yours, Lisa.
Hello. Thanks for that great introduction, Steve. I want to thank the OSCC team of community volunteers who gave our panel the opportunity to discuss a controversial topic by accepting our proposal. I also want to acknowledge the work of organizations like Virtual Ability and educators who run avatar training sessions, share best practices, and provide resources for people with disabilities in virtual worlds. Finally, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to OpenSimulator as an open source code project. This includes all of the forked versions. We all benefit from every effort as a virtual worlds community. You have all done a great job. Thank you. Today, I would like to share my perspective with you as a forgotten avatar. I hope it creates greater engagement and provokes thoughts on a topic that many of us are simply not aware still exists in virtual worlds. The next 20 minutes will be fast-paced and packed with information, so we have time for questions afterwards. Bear with me, I will tie it all together at the end. Here we go. Being an engineer and an advocate, I tend to see problems as opportunities for solutions. This topic is not just my problem or the problem of other forgotten avatars who are expected to adapt. It is a community problem that needs to be resolved by taking a new approach. Albert Einstein said doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is the definition of insanity. So let's stop the insanity. This panel discussion can be the beginning of great work we can do together as a community. Forgotten avatars in virtual worlds. Who are they? Why are they forgotten? How long have we known this is an issue? What is the root cause of the problem? How can we resolve these issues? Who are the stakeholders? What action can we take to eliminate the problem in the future? People with disabilities, permanent or temporary, have benefited greatly from the use of virtual worlds in many ways. From combating social isolation, to addressing motor skills issues that Tim described, to providing rehabilitation and treatment of health issues. Sometimes virtual worlds can be used as positive technology, such as the recent research project I supported. It was called Wellbeing Technologies. Meditation using virtual worlds. The technical work for the user interface and master script involved consideration for my own disability and potentially any research participant by design. People with disabilities who design worlds and write scripts often try to accommodate other disabled user needs. Another example might be a virtual world designer who provides oral cues when approaching game elements for the visually impaired user. Or, to accommodate those with hearing impairments, designers might want to script console messages when in-world sounds trigger or provide some other visual cue. I admire Tim and other people with disabilities who find ways to accommodate their needs despite barriers created by software development approaches. The divergent needs of people with disabilities are so diverse that there is no way to discuss them all today. Overall, the positive impact of virtual world technology for people with disabilities has been remarkable and extraordinary. I don't want this discussion to take away from all the wonderful positive technology efforts of this community. But I do want to talk about the work that still needs to be done. All things considered. In essence, one could think of forgotten avatars as people with a wide range of disabilities. Software developers, businesses, and organizations with the best of intentions often think of users in terms of non-disabled and disabled. They take the traditional approach targeting non-disabled users first, then think adaptive or assistive technologies are viable solutions for inclusivity. In my experience as a person with a disability who is directly impacted by virtual world technology approaches, I think the development view of people with disabilities as peripheral is simply a flawed perspective, making it exclusive rather than inclusive. People with disabilities are fully aware our divergent needs can make software development and feature additions difficult. Some of us still feel forgotten and frustrated that we are expected to adapt rather than be allowed to help. Even when developers try to accommodate, some of us are even further marginalized within virtual worlds while others are helped. This is especially true when considering cross-disability communication between auditory communicators and visual communicators. This has been a source of controversy in virtual worlds since voice was added as a feature 9 years ago. The ability to communicate effectively in virtual worlds online is as essential to social interaction as it is offline. Clarity is even more important online because we don't have body language and sometimes don't have the benefit of clear voice inflection to assist us in our understanding. Ideally, it seems intuitive software should be developed that offers all users the opportunity to communicate in their chosen or native methods by voice, chat, or sign language. But even that can be a problem because of accents, local dialects, or even diversity of languages including signing. If we sign only, we exclude those who need to hear voice. If we use one language only, we exclude those who don't understand that language. If we use voice only, we exclude those who cannot use or hear voice. I very much agree with design thinker and disability activist Elise Roy, who said when we design for disability, we all benefit. We do often find solutions that are better than we had before. As a forgotten avatar marginalized in virtual worlds, I want to talk briefly about this with regards to virtual world viewing software, then discuss a potential approach to viable solutions. We can break types of disabilities impacted by virtual world viewing software into 5 categories: motor, cognitive, vision, hearing, and speech. For some people in all categories, difficulty using virtual worlds does not just cause frustration or a feeling of social isolation. It can cause physical symptoms that can take days to recover from and also lead to depressive episodes. This is not just a disability issue. It is a health issue. In my opinion, that makes it a humanitarian issue for the community. Many people with disabilities have disabilities that fit into more than one of these categories. Vision and hearing disabilities are the most common in people with other disabilities or with age. Early adopters of virtual worlds are among our older population. But we also have to consider veterans returning from the war theater and others who have benefited recently from the use of virtual worlds in education or therapy. When virtual worlds evolved to include voice communications, the number of potential hearing disabled users was twice that of those with vision impairments, and the gap is growing. One can only wonder why developers made the choices they've made, since that seems counterintuitive. Perhaps it was related to educators who found using voice in virtual worlds to be more effective for learning and had no correlation to people with disabilities. It was more likely related in a broader sense to user experience. Much was discussed about that choice with regards to the small text in the virtual world viewer user interface. But the resulting impact of that choice further marginalized users with hearing impairments, which became a source of controversy that remains today. It also impacted those with speech disabilities and motor disabilities on both sides of the controversy. I would like to share some experiences of my own in virtual worlds to help people better understand the impact. For those who don't know me, I am legally deaf since birth, even though I have some of my hearing. My impairment is neurosensory or frequency-oriented. This is the same as 90% of people who are hearing impaired, but each impairment is as unique as a fingerprint. About half of the medical community thinks deaf people should sign, while the other half believes that is an exclusive approach. The latter half provides assistance in lip reading, interpolation of sentence structure, and speech therapy to help us integrate into a hearing society as normies. I am in that latter half. The problem is not all lips can be read if people don't make them visible because they are looking down or away. If they have a lot of facial hair covering their lips. If they are speaking with their back turned. If they have had injuries, strokes, collagen injections, or lip surgeries. Or if they have speech disabilities or cleft lips. For virtual communication, the problem is compounded due to technology limitations for audio and video clarity with user or avatar lips that cannot be read. Even if we overcome those technology barriers, the need for captioning and subtitling remains because consonant sounds in human speech are associated with frequencies. If you cannot tell the difference between A, P, T, and C, B, D, and V, M and N, or even F and S, human speech can be unintelligible. Not being able to understand and communicate effectively leads to social isolation, frequent misunderstandings, false first impressions, and in some cases poverty. It is a quality of life issue as with any disability, but it is an invisible one because I don't look disabled. Much like my avatars. If you forget, don't be hard on yourself. My own family forgets sometimes. Early on in the evolution of the internet, I was into using bulletin board systems, forums, and chat rooms. Now I love using email and texting. For me, the playing field is level when it is in text. When I used Active Worlds, Move, Dare, Blackson, and even in early Second Life, I felt I finally found a place I could feel empowered to just be me without all the battles and uncertainties associated with my hearing. Then came voice without automatic transcription, and I experienced more digital marginalization than I felt before closed captions were required for television broadcasts. I later started using OpenSimulator and did not have to deal with voice until it arrived there later. Per online posts and interviews by researchers, deaf users with low speech discrimination scores were negatively impacted socially and culturally. For example, a user with a speech discrimination score of 67% does not understand 33 of every 100 words transmitted by voice. Online voice quality issues are similar to noise booth testing conditions used in research. NIH research showed while hearing-impaired users scored slightly less in a quiet booth as expected, the discrimination loss greatly increased in a noisy booth. Scores were 88% and 98% in a quiet booth, with measures of 55% and 93% in noisy booths, respectively. I understand the flip side for those with vision impairments or motor impairments who are helped by having voice, and it is good to have for a positive user experience in their case. But my hope is that people will begin to understand the needs of people who have speech disabilities and hearing disabilities who are actually hurt by not being able to use voice, or by not having automatic transcription of voice they cannot hear. It negatively impacts us socially, educationally, and professionally. I remember losing a friend in virtual worlds who could not type well and had only one hand. He needed to use voice to communicate. But his voice was in a frequency range I could not understand, so no matter how hard I tried, no matter the headset rig I used, or no matter the alternative scripts available for the hearing impaired, we could not communicate effectively. Our friendship became too much of a source of frustration for him, and he ended our friendship. On the other hand, I am very grateful for friends in virtual worlds who have gone out of their way to make me feel welcome and provide transcripts on note cards of poetry readings, or of plays being performed virtually so I can follow along and be included in festivities. I truly appreciate the efforts of Cynthia, Barbara, Steve, and others who try to transcribe voice during meetings so I won't feel excluded, but they are not always available, and that is understandable. In my view, what we need for full disability equality and a positive user experience for everyone in virtual worlds does not yet exist. But it can, if we work together to make it happen rather than just talk about it. Now that everyone listening knows a little about me as a forgotten avatar, Let's consider the potential impact now and in the future that digital marginalization and cross-disability communication issues may have on people with disabilities. 1 in 5 Americans has one or more disabilities. In the U.S., 1 in 6 baby boomers have hearing loss. 1 in 14 Americans of Generation X have hearing loss. 1 in 5 American teens have some type of hearing loss. 60% of returning U.S. veterans have hearing impairments. It is evident people with hearing loss is the fastest growing segment of people in the U.S. with disabilities. Let's look at the economic aspect. 1 in 7 Americans live in poverty, but that amount doubles to 28% for people with disabilities. Individuals with disabilities in third world countries are more likely to become disabled as a result of poor living conditions, health endangering employment, malnutrition, poor access to health care, and lack of accessible education. We know disability and the social stigma associated with it. Marginalization worsen poverty by increasing an individual's isolation from society and causing economic strain. Yet, the growth rate of people with disabilities is outpacing population growth worldwide. These alarming statistics clearly show we have major issues that we will face in the future with regards to the needs of people with disabilities. I believe the use of virtual worlds will continue to grow in education, training, and therapy. It will also likely expand into the workplace for teleworkers. This means these offline statistics have relevance because anyone is a potential user. People with disabilities make up the largest minority in America and are by far the most impoverished because they are marginalized, are more likely to have health issues, and are more likely to have family incomes diminished. With the prevalence of poverty among those with disabilities, it is clear we need to eliminate any barriers, virtual or otherwise, as soon as possible. Accessibility is a growing concern worldwide, and that includes addressing issues in open-source software design. Cost is certainly a consideration, and open-source collaboration of a new viewer application from scratch is a great idea, but it will be some time until that can be developed. Time and costs are also considerations when we consider new research associated with haptic feedback devices, brain-computer interfaces, human-computer interface technologies for signing, various input-output devices for divergent needs, and head-mounted displays with sound. In addition, while training of non-disabled first responder or military personnel using virtual worlds may not be seen as needing accessible software design, we have to consider the trainers may be people with disabilities like veterans or retirees. All of the upcoming research is exciting with great potential, but it will not address the needs of today's users with disabilities. So let's think about what we can do now to help as many people as we can while new technology is developed. For example, it's been more than 15 years since the evolution of virtual worlds, yet we still have not incorporated text-to-speech and speech-to-text in all virtual world viewing software. Both of these are very mature technology solutions for people with disabilities in addition to other uses. Why is that the case? Because the divergent needs of people with disabilities are not part of the planning and design of virtual world viewing software. This is the root cause we must address. Was the digital marginalization resulting in forgotten avatars intentional? No, I don't think so. I also don't think further marginalization of the hearing impaired by adding the voice feature without transcription was intentional either. In fact, it is likely developers simply did not know how to plan and design inclusive software. Very few do, because none of us really know what all of the divergent needs are for all people with disabilities. But we must acknowledge the accessibility problem exists, and find ways we can not only help resolve the issues today but also prevent a repeat of the issue in the future. So let's review the problem. Virtual world viewing software is not designed to be inclusive. The impact: digital marginalization on different levels, forgotten avatars. The stakeholders: the virtual world community, education, businesses, governments, and non-profit organizations. A short-term solution: integrate text-to-speech and speech-to-text into existing virtual world viewer software. People with disabilities impacted by communications issues would see immediate benefit from these two easily integrated solutions. A long-term solution. Form active working groups that can develop accessibility standards or guidelines for software developers so they can take an inclusive approach rather than an exclusive one when writing applications. In a nutshell, Grace Hopper said it best when she said the most dangerous phrase is, "We've always done it this way." On this topic, now that we can see this way is flawed, it's time to stop doing it this way. We need to break down the barriers and implement accessible design, even in open source. For all of us with barriers holding us back in virtual worlds, we are the forgotten avatars who are already stakeholders. For all of you listening who want to help break down these barriers, please become a stakeholder and join us in this effort. I really want to hear more about the barriers others face, share ideas for solutions, and find ways we can not just break, but also knock the barriers down. As a community, we can find solutions together. Some of us are already building an exciting new organization dedicated to accessible software and standards to advance virtual worlds and virtual reality technologies. We think this effort would be a good fit for one of many community working group projects we envision. We can exchange contact information after our session ends. Before we continue, I want to acknowledge the following organizations that provide data on people with disabilities to be addressed with accessible software design. World Health Organization, U.S. Census Bureau, The Hearing Review, Frontiers Academic Publishing, Journal of Virtual World Research, Able Gamers Foundation, Disability Studies Quarterly, Centers for Disease Control, National Institutes of Health, Health and Human Services, Respectability Report, and the Anita Borg Institute. As an example of text-to-speech technology and a fairly natural voice, the voice in this presentation was provided by a free TTS reader available online. Thank you all for listening. Now it is my turn to listen to you. Back to you, Steve.
Okay, go ahead and type your questions in here. Thank you very much, Lisa. An excellent presentation. Now we're ready for questions and answers. Yeah, Lisa has quite a bit into that video.
Let me try to address Gentle's question here, her comment. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. The question was about whether, if we have a situation where we do have digital marginalization of some of the forgotten avatars, wouldn't it make sense to have more options? What we're looking at and proposing is inclusive software design, which means that you don't look at people with disabilities as a separate group. These are people with individual strengths that we need to exploit those strengths and be sure that we accommodate all of the individual issues by design of the software itself. So I hope that answers that question.
Here's another one, Lisa. It says, are the new interfaces like Cortana, Siri, etc., making efforts?
I think there are people who are writing applications to access various speech recognition engines. The problem is in virtual world, we don't have viewer software that is integrating those capabilities.
Okay, the next question. Since we are handling the audio through Skype, is there a speech-to-text option in Skype, or do we have another option to deal with unscripted panels? That was from Mike Laurie.
I didn't quite get that question. Was that for me?
Yeah, that's for you, Lisa. Well, or I can even answer it. As far as I know, there isn't a speech-to-text option in Skype. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
There is a text-to-speech option. I know that there are people who are hearing disabled that are Skype developers that have been working on some things, but the speech-to-text recognition of every single voice is like a fingerprint. You can't just have one engine that can do it all. It needs to happen client-side so that people can train their client systems to their voice patterns.
It sounds like it's tricky.
I'm busily reading the chat here. Here's what Franz says. Lisa, there is a text-to-speech option, but there's only one. It needs to be client-side so the people can train their system to their voice. And I agree to that. One of the things I've had problems with the Mac system I've got is I have to speak kind of slowly and clearly, and I think I slur some of my words, and it has issues with that. Oh, okay. Go ahead, Tim.
Me too. It would be a problem for me to have trouble with speech to text too, because that's the rules. That's what I'm saying.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Dave Kurt says, how do I get a client-side system to convert my speech to text? Well, one of the systems that we found is that inside of Windows 10, I think it comes with the operating system, is a speech-to-text system. Mac has
correct.
it too. Go ahead, Lisa.
On the Windows systems, both Windows 7 and Windows 10, they have what they call Microsoft Dictate. You'll find it in your accessibility options, but under Windows 10, I think they basically just reclassified it as speech recognition. It uses the technology that was developed by IBM. Their former product was IBM Via Voice, which I found to be actually superior to the Nuance project, which is the company that bought Dragon Naturally Speaking. But you do have to train your system to your voice. It takes about 2 or 3 months for it to, you have to use it every day and use it for navigating around your system, use it for writing all of your letters, emails, and whatnot, so that it can learn your voice patterns, and you have to correct it when it gets it wrong. And then it will eventually learn, and it's actually pretty accurate.
In the Mac, there's a thing inside of system preferences called dictation and speech. That one can run 2 different ways. It can run like Siri, where it goes over the internet, or you can download the system into the computer which is what I did, it does take quite a bit of computational power. Like I'm running Skype and the Singularity viewer and also TextEdit here. I'm running 3 windows in TextEdit, and that basically brought it to its knees. So that's why I say it takes a bit of work, but it does work once it works.
Yeah, that was the big problem here, where Steve had intended to demonstrate speech to text in his first part of this presentation. And the problem arises because the client viewer is really hogging a lot of CPU, GPU resources, and then he's got Skype open. I know that he was using 2 different systems to try to avoid this type of load, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, it brought my computer to its knees. And I think also this machine's been on all day, and I think it's probably got other things going on in there. But as a general rule, if you're just in world and you want to use that, frankly, as long as you don't have a lot of other stuff going on at the same time, it works quite well. Let's see some other questions here.
And one of the things that I hope that we were able to do with this presentation, and I hope that everybody had the opportunity to watch the video, because it was very difficult for me to try to get the text into chat when I couldn't hear the speech and I couldn't synchronize the slides with you. So I apologize for that, but technology was our barrier in that case. But if you want to view the video anytime, I also want to encourage people who have proficiency in other languages. I have left that video open for contribution. So if anybody would like to transcribe it to another language and contribute that, please do. I think that there are people in other languages that would benefit from seeing this type of presentation.
The other thing is if you notice that we put up a slide that says Q&A with Infinite Metaverse Alliance. Infinite Metaverse Alliance is our new foundation that's designed to work with virtual worlds, and part of what we will be doing is assistive technologies. We will also be designing new systems of virtual worlds and improving things, including OpenSimulator. We're going to be a very community-driven organization. I've got a thing that I'll put out again here so that you can have the address to get to us. It's quite a thing. It's going to be a lot of fun. You'll get into a whole lot of really interesting discussions. We're very much community-orientated. We do what our community wants us to do. So if you want to see something really develop in virtual worlds, give us a yell, get together with us. We'd love to hear from you. And one of the best ways to get started is to go to lists.infinitemetaverse.org and click on the subscribe tab there and subscribe yourself, and go ahead and read the page itself. You'll see a diagram of how the foundation will work in its basic ways. And any other questions you get, we're more than willing to sit down and have a talk with you, because we want you to be part of us.
We have also set up a G+ public community. If anybody would like to join the conversation there, while we work on getting our social network up for the community on our .org main site. That's just not going to be live for a while. So we thought, why wait on time? Let's just go ahead and use the resource we have, and then we can always migrate over later.
Sorry, I'm typing. That page, by the way, is very new. I mean, the ink on it isn't even dry yet. Lisa built it this afternoon. But it's a good little opening for us. you'll see a lot more from us in the future here, because we wanted to get you guys in on it early so that you could see what we were up to and just what we're starting here. So hopefully you'll come and see us later. And thank you, Dave. That's good. You'll get an email back. By the way, if you don't get the email back relatively quickly, look in your spam folder, because that's where I found it. I have Gmail, and it came out in my spam folder. Delightful asks, can we share the video on Twitter and Facebook? Lisa? She says absolutely. Feel free to.
It is public on my branded YouTube that is set up for that purpose. There is also a short clip on there of the research that I mentioned that highlights some of the virtual world aspects.
Also, you'll see that a lot of that stuff too over at our booth in Expo 2. Like I said, if you want a full transcript of what happened tonight, at least what was supposed to happen tonight, it's in the box on the stage. Don't click it to get the script. Just do the take one little thing, right click.
Thank you, everyone, for attending and listening to my diatribe through the presentation.
Thank you very much, guys. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of you there, to Tim and to Lisa and Steve as well. That was great. I know, obviously, thanks for bearing with us with some of the technical kind of things we had to go through. But I think that's a good example of how accessibility is definitely a needed fix.
So, well, thank you for stepping in and helping us.
Yeah,
you guys saved the day.
it takes a village, right? I mean,
there it is.
And to the point, we're obviously, this is the last panel of today, the last session, and we'll resume again tomorrow at 7 a.m. But this is a good point to what Steve brought up, that even the OpenSimulator Community Conference exists as that whole point of bringing together the diverse community that OpenSimulator has within it. That includes obviously not just the folks that are making the technology, the core technology, but all of us that are users of various sorts, and those setting grids and everybody in between, and finding that, sort of filling that need of connecting folks was kind of where at least myself and the rest of us at Avicon came from when we were setting this up. And like several people here, like Steve was bringing up on his side, and then before earlier with OS Grid and a few others, that there's quite a few of us here that kind of come at this from this nonprofit focus of things, trying to further and the community as a whole. So thank you all for today. As I said, this is the last session for today, and we'll resume 7 a.m. tomorrow morning in this keynote region here. And our kickoff panel presentation then will be virtual robotics, creating, collaborating, and constructionist learning in a virtual world. And Pathfinder will be part of that first thing in the morning, so we'll get to see him up on stage. And then also tonight in between, if you've got time, we encourage you to visit the OSCC16 poster booth. So quite a few of the speakers have brought up that their poster sessions are up in there. So OSCC Expo Region 3 is the one to head to for that, and you can wander around there. And then to check out any of the accompanying information or giveaways or stuff there as well. And then explore the Hypergrid Tour resources that are in Expo Region 2. And then throughout the entire Expo regions in general, the 1 through 5, there are many sponsor and crowdfunder booths that are located throughout all of the Expo regions. And, I'd like to, as a note on that, much thanks to all the folks who who helped chip in either through crowdfunding it when you were registered or through sponsoring the event. To the many crowdhunters, we have a huge list of both the crowdfunders and the logos and links of our sponsors that you can find on conference.opensimulator.org. So thank all of those people as you see them, because we're all here today because of that. So thank you again to our speakers and to this panel, of course, and to the rest of our speakers today, and to all of you for being an amazing, lovely audience. So we're going to take things down here, and we'll see you all in the morning. So explore the expos and all the other stuff in the grid. Take care.